Glad to have you join us on this interesting edition of Business and Economy, where we enlighten you on the tax administration strategies and its impact on the Nigerian economy. I am Ile Emeje. Tax is a compulsory levy imposed on the citizens for the purpose of providing social services, including roads, schools, hospitals, bridges, water supply, sewage systems, electricity, and for maintenance of law and order, as well as security and safety valves through the courts, police, the military, and payment of public servants, and to keep the people safe from associated neighboring communities within and outside the country. In Nigeria, we operate a decentralized tax system where each level of government is independently responsible for administration of taxes within its jurisdiction. Nigeria generates revenue to fund government expenditures through a pool of taxes for each tier of government and/or from the private sector operations. The administration of these taxes is controlled at the federal level by the Federal Inland Revenue Service, that is FIRS, and in the states by the State Inland Revenue Services, and by extension down to the local administration authorities. However, in recent time, some institutions that are not saddled with the responsibilities to collect tax have engaged themselves in this duty. This has led to what can be described as multiplication of tax collection in Nigeria. On this edition of Business and Economy, we are going to examine tax administration and the role of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS. My guest is already in the studio with me, and he is the Special Assistant on Media and Communication to the Executive Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mr. Johannes Toby Urola, who is joining us after the business news to discuss the topic. We'll be right back. Equity sector of the Nigerian capital market transacted in a turnover of 482 million stocks at the last session, valued at 5.64 billion naira across 5,298 deals. CWG and Len Africa made the highest profit of 10% each, followed by Custodian improving with 9.73%. Conversely, Transcorp was top on the decliners with a loss of 9.77%, followed by Living Trust and Mark Nichols dipping with 9.73% and 9.72%. In volume terms, Access Corporation dominated the general activity level with 16 million stocks, while United Bank for Africa and Fidelity Bank traded in 5 million stocks and 3 million stocks in that order. In the course of business, all SHE index and market capitalization of listed equities appreciated by 0.33% to close on a high of 52,465 units and 28.57 trillion naira. Meanwhile, the naira sells on the parallel market for 734 naira to the dollar, 923 naira to the pound sterling, and 793 naira to the euro.
We are a nation blessed with people of diverse cultures, religions, languages, and opinions. It is ironic that we are now being ripped apart by our greatest strength, our diversity. We have allowed intolerance, insensitivity, bigotry, and nepotism to blind our vision of the greatness we can achieve working together as one. We may not have the same culture, nor religion, nor language, but we all belong to the same nation by the divine will of God. We did not choose to be Nigerians. Nigeria chose us. This nation is our divine heritage, and if we open our eyes, we would realize that what divides us pales in comparison to what unites us. And by the comparison and conciliation of our differences, we will grow until our differences disappear. Our unity cannot be willed by mere declarations, Nor do we get unity by ignoring the questions that beg for answers. We must celebrate our diversity and debate our differences without fracturing our unity. Our strength is not in our numbers, but in our unity, because even the weak become strong when united. Nigeria unite.
This message is brought to you by Abuja Broadcasting Corporation, owners and operators of ASO Radio 93.5 FM Abuja, ASO Television DSTV Channel 392, Star Times Terrestrial Channel 127, Free TV Channel 507, People's TV Channel 285, and UHF Channel 38.
Thanks for being there. Our guest, the Special Assistant on Media and Communications to the Executive Chairman, Federal Inland Revenue Services, Mr. Johannes Toby Ujola, is here to take a look at the topic, tax administration in Nigeria and the role of the FIRS. Mr. Ujola, you are welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
All right. The primary role of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, as we all know, among others, are to collect, to access, and also to account for the country's taxation system. How has it been with the implementation of this mandate so far?
I think, summarily, it has been a very, very positive journey. And I say journey because it doesn't just begin and end in one day. And tax administration is changing, and to reflect the dynamics and the changes that we are experiencing, generally in the world. Take, for instance, the way business is being carried out today is different from the way business was carried out 10, 15, 20 years back. So that behoves on the tax administrator to align itself, reform itself, and adapt itself to the changes of the commercial, setting. So those three mandates that the FIRS has, the function of assessing, the function of collecting, and the function of accounting, and which you have rightly noted, there are others, but let's just stay on these three, have transformed in various ways over the years. So the way we assess today, or what is being assessed today, is not what you would have had 5 years before now. The way we collect today is not the way we collect, or what we even collected 5 years from now. And what are the changes that we have made to, ensure that this has, or we have acclimatized with the times? One, we have introduced the Tax Pro Max.
And what is it?
The Tax Pro Max is a tax administration solution, an e-solution, so to say, where a taxpayer from anywhere across the world can log into our to www.taxpromax.gov.firs.ng or firs.gov.ng and can register for tax, file their returns, and also pay their taxes, among other things, like applying for your tax clearance certificate and get your tax clearance certificate. Now, this has by itself transformed the way tax administration is being done in the country, or was being done in the country. Previously, a taxpayer would have had to go to a tax office, request for certain details, do manual filing. After doing the assessment, a tax officer will assess you, check and everything, do all the checking and what have you. Then you will take whatever has been assessed to the bank and make a payment. Now, all a taxpayer has to do is go online, fill in those details they would ordinarily have presented in a piece of paper, and the assessment will be done electronically what is due will come out, and the taxpayer may choose to pay online or take the invoice, so to say, to the bank and pay. Now, what we have done is we have eliminated a lot, including corruption,
which is a serious matter.
where you would previously have had maybe an unbecoming officer want to, cut corners, change the books, or even distort the assessment. Now your assessment is done online. It's electronic. We've also been able to raise more revenue by doing that.
Okay.
You would realize that since 2021, when the June 2021 precisely was when we deployed the Tax Pro Max, the FIRS has consistently been raising the amount it has collected in tax revenue.
Target, so to say.
Well, target is given to us by government, but we have ensured that at every point in time we have met the target, particularly 2021, and in 2022 we achieved about 97% of that target. But what are the figures? In 2021, the FIRS collected the total sum of 6.405 trillion naira for the Federation. That sum was the highest as of 2021 that the FIRS had ever collected in tax collection. And it was the first time we crossed the 6 trillion mark. It was the first time, it was also a situation where we had also met and surpassed our targets. Okay. It was widely celebrated and the president commended the service. Then, in 2022, which is the year we just left now.
Just last year.
The FIRS collected the total sum of 10.1 trillion naira.
10.5.
10.1 trillion naira. And that sum being very significant because it's the highest amount that any institution in Nigeria has ever collected and brought forward to the government. Any institution. It's also the highest amount that the FIRS has ever collected as an institution. And it will be the first time that the FIRS would achieve, this milestone collection. And what would have been the success factors?
Yeah.
Like I said, the Tax Pro Max, technology, taking away the manual approach to tax administration and entering into the digital age to be able to tax, to be able to allow taxpayers pay their taxes at their convenience. We also deployed various incentives and changes in our approaches. For instance, one of the cardinal objectives of the chairman has been to ensure that the FIRS is a customer-centric institution. A taxpayer should see. Nobody wants to pay taxes. This is something we all agree on. Nobody is happy to pay.
Maybe for some reasons. Anyway.
Nobody is happy to part away with their money.
Maybe for some reasons.
Well, generally, if you earn 100,000 naira and somebody says, "Give me 30,000 naira for government," sometimes you would ask yourself, "Now let me eat my money." So it's not. But you see, the whole concept of being a customer-centric institution is to be able to ensure that the taxpayer feels at the very least okay and conveniently so to part away with their money for the purpose of tax payments. And that is why we introduced the convenience of the Tax Pro Max. We have our contact center, which is the first of its kind. We're making sure that we're engaged in tax education, letting people understand that, see, this tax we're talking about is a social contract. It's not some form of forceful thing that someone has a whip in the hand and is whipping you to let go of your earnings.
All things being equal.
All things being equal, and that's why it's a contract. A contract. The concept of a contract presupposes two people are engaged or two parties are engaged in something and are saying, "I will do this for you, and you will pay this. You will pay me for this." So in this contract that the government has with the citizens comes obligations and rights of both parties. In the simplest terms, the government has obligations, like you had mentioned earlier,
To the people.
to provide security, and I think that is one of the most fundamental obligations of the government, to provide security, to provide education, quality education, to provide healthcare, to maintain law and order, to take care of the well-being of citizens, to provide a governance structure and a bureaucracy or civil service, such that the government can provide you with certain services that you require, like immigration service. These are things that I would say are taken for granted. You want a passport today, and you travel abroad, and let's take for instance our brothers and sisters that just returned from Sudan. That is your tax money at work. That person is a citizen. He left the country on his own accord. There's war in that country, and he's calling on his country to come and rescue him. And the country indeed makes provision to rescue him. Where did the country get the money to fund it from? Tax money. So it is being able to understand that government has a duty to citizens on one hand, and also being able to understand that on the other hand of this contract, citizens have a duty to government through their taxes, because government cannot provide these services without the necessary funding for it. And it is as trivial as it may seem. Our soldiers and our officers who are, in the northeast, protecting the territorial integrity of this country, receiving allowances on a monthly or daily basis, being paid, being given weapons and ammunition, being provided with this new MRAPs, the mine-resistant, vehicles, these jets, these fighter jets that we purchased from I think Brazil and the USA. All of this are funded with money that comes from tax monies. You also move down to education. As trivial as it may seem, and those of us who have had the privilege of passing through public tertiary institutions, you go across and you will see TET fund projects, and I'm very sure that a lot of our viewers can attest to that.
In some
You will see
universities,
there is no university today, public tertiary institution, that you will not see one TET fund project. None.
Okay.
Go around and check. TET fund, you see TET fund 2022, TET fund 2021, TET fund so 1990 something, and what have you. What is TET fund per se? Tertiary Education Trust Fund. What is this trust fund? It is education tax. That education tax is the 2.5% that is charged by the FIRS on the accessible profit of every registered company in Nigeria. Many Nigerians don't know this.
That's why we need this.
And that's why we're having this conversation.
And enlightenment
so
campaign.
every time a company is doing its assessment, a registered company in Nigeria, it pays 2.5% of its accessible profit. That 2.5% is pooled into what we call the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, which is managed by TET Fund and is used to deploy projects across the country. In University of Abuja, NLT, so many halls. You go to the permanent site in Gwagwalada, so almost all those halls are built by TET Fund. They are TET Fund intervention projects. You go to the Federal University of Twike, the libraries and halls and the Senate building and the hostels, male and female, all built by TET Fund. Coming from where? Tax monies. You go to healthcare as well. It is from the monies that come from taxes paid. The government is able to provide primary healthcare centers across the 774 local governments of the country. Same with the teaching hospitals, the federal medical centers, all provided under or through tax monies. The payment of the doctors and nurses, and rightly so. Our doctors are asking for better remuneration, more payments, and what have you, better allowances, given the kind of sacrifices they are making for the country.
Yeah.
Where is that money going to come from? The taxes that we pay. And of significance as well is the issue of
COVID-19.
COVID-19. The country shut down. The government was able to set up isolation centers across the country, even though with some support from the private sector as well. It was able to give out palliatives. It was able to ensure that, I will tell you for one, that I had COVID. I went to an isolation center. I was there for 10 days. I was fed morning, afternoon, and evening. I was treated by a doctor who will come to me. He comes, the doctor, the two of them will come 7 a.m., 2 p.m., and I think 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. every day to come and check on my take my vitals.
For free
and
of
I
charge?
did not pay 1 naira. And I
For
felt,
free of charge?
I will tell you, I did not pay a single dime.
Wow.
I did not, and this was applicable throughout all the isolation centers that were run and managed by the federal government. Where did that come from? All those the doctors, they were paid by tax monies. We may be able to vary and argue or debate that, was the remuneration okay? That is another debate on another day. And it also feeds back to the question of taxation, because government must be able to fund its objectives, must be able to fund those things that we as citizens are asking for through monies. And where does the money come from? Taxation. So in answering your question, which has gone so broadly, how have we been able to fulfill our mandate? I think so far, so very good, but there's still much more. And given that there is government needs continue to expand, more citizens, we're having more people, the population is increasing, issues keep rising and arising, both whether it's security, healthcare, education. Government needs more money. And so as an institution that is charged with the assessment, collection, and accounting for taxation or for taxes, we understand that there's still much more to be done. We need to collect more money. And it's important that I mention here that the money that is collected by the FIRS is not just for the federal government. It is for the federation. And that includes the federal government, the states, and the local governments. So I would say confidently that in the last 2 years, that's 2021, 2022, FIRS has contributed an average of 65%, at least 65% of the monies that are distributed on a monthly basis to ATFAC. That's the Federation Allocations Committee that funds, that is where state governments get their monies to pay their salaries, so also for the local government. So you can imagine the importance of every little tax that is paid, how it goes and trickles down back to even the local governments where our uncles or aunties are in our local communities.
Okay. When you take a quick look at taxation, collection, and just like you reiterated that the taxes collected is not just meant for the development of maybe the federal alone, but it goes to the state level.
Indeed.
And as far as to the local government councils. Now, my question is, yes, you have embarked on enlightenment campaign, but what are you doing to expand this enlightenment campaign to the grassroots, like the local government council? And again, some citizens have expressed dissatisfaction with the application of taxpayers' money. How would you react to this?
I will be very cautious to react to this.
Okay.
Because the machinery of government goes far beyond the FIRS.
Okay.
If my duty is to collect money and put on the table, it may not necessarily be my duty to administer that money or
Okay.
determine how it is spent. The FIRS does not determine the spending of money,
Okay.
of the money it collects. It just makes sure it does its duty to do the collection assessment. But one of the things that we don't shy away from, and we are very much more conscious of, and perhaps you may want to put that in terms of our accountability mandate, is being able to liaise with partners, government stakeholders especially, to showcase what taxpayers' monies have done for them.
Okay.
For instance, we are encouraging of government ministries and what have you that are engaged in projects, capital projects, to be able to showcase those projects and state that this was funded by your tax monies. We are also, or we advocate also, that projects, what our politicians will call constituency projects, so to say, are not denoted as Honorable Johannes's projects, but are denoted as taxpayers' money. You see, when you ascribe a project that I have facilitated, so to say, in my community, as a project that was facilitated by Honorable Wojola, I take the glory. I'm not the taxpayer, not the average Nigerian who, in his own little way, when he buys something and then there's a tax to it, has paid tax. It is your tax money that is working for you. So we have been consistently advocating that our colleagues in the government should have a consciousness that when there is a communication or when there is an accountability or showcasing what they have done using government resources, they should do well to ascribe it to the people. That in this contract between government and the people, we have done our part. This is your contract delivered to you. And it helps people to appreciate. And you see, the truth is, over time, the country has become very reliant on oil money. And oil money is rent, is royalty. So it necessarily does not come from a contribution that citizens have made towards their state. And there's this thinking, which I subscribe to and we at the FIRS subscribe to, that civilizations are built by the taxes citizens pay. The US, the UK, all the places that people are japping into were built by the taxes that their citizens paid. The people, the government, deployed those taxes to build roads, to build working healthcare systems, to build functional educational systems, and what have you. So we as a people, as a country, must understand that we have a duty to fund our civilization through the taxes we pay. And it will not drop from heaven. Good roads will be funded. Whether we like it or not, nobody is just going to wake up one day and drop quota from Nnamdi Azikiwe airport to town. It must be funded. So we are making sure that we're able to showcase and show that this thing you are seeing here is the outcome of your tax money. We're able to do more campaigns, and this year I can assure you and our viewers who are watching that we are going to be very, very, very vocal about expressing and showcasing what these monies are doing. We're working with our partners. We're working with the Ministry of Works and Housing. Thanks. We really appreciate their support. We're working with TED Fund. We're working with NIDA. We're trying to get as many partners as possible. Let us go out there and tell Nigerians that, see, quite all right, we are not where we want to be, but one or two things that we are seeing are being done. I like to give this example often. Whenever there is an issue between any citizen, couple of people, What do? We call police. If somebody comes to your house, you call your police. You call police. Whether you, no matter how much we decry the Nigerian police, if there is a small fight, you will look for a police officer.
Definitely.
That police officer is funded by tax money. So, by the very presence of a police van driving through a community, citizens feel a sense of peace, a sense of security. That police van is purchased with tax money. Those police officers are paid salaries on a monthly basis. That is tax money. Currently, there's a tribunal ongoing. Judges are sitting. How are they paid? They are paid with tax monies. Elections held in April, in February. How were they paid? They were paid with tax monies. So, the various facets of our daily lives and our interaction with society are funded by tax monies. And what we want to do is up our game, continue to educate Nigerians that see, everything one way or the other we are enjoying tax monies, but it can be better when you pay your taxes, or when we continue to pay our taxes and pay the right taxes. Don't shortchange the government.
Okay. All right. Every public good we have enjoyed is paid with tax money, including the education, the roads, and everything, even the payment of salaries for civil servants. If you and I, we care to pay our taxes. Okay, we'll take a quick break now and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Sir, can you please give us the permission to search you? You can go.
Is this a movie? If it happened.
Officer, I beg carry and go station. When our Oga come, you come meet am for there.
Hey, Mr. Man, I cannot do that.
Tell your Oga to come to our station when he returns.
Am I in a movie? If it happen,
Mama, please. Mama, please.
Thank God you're here. Do the needful.
Mama, please, just 3 weeks
Madam,
now.
why did you invite us to come help chase your tenants now?
This is a civil matter now.
Is this a movie? If it happen,
If we follow
The new police law.
You are on to Business and Economy program, and we are taking a look at tax administration and the role of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the FIRS. The guest is the Special Assistant on Media and Communication to the Chairman of the FIRS, Mr. Johannes Toby Wojola. Mr. Wojola, because of our time, we are going to jump some of our questions, but generally, I want us to look at what the FIRS is doing to harmonize tax, because one issue that has bothered the general public or has restrained them from paying their tax is the issue of multiplication of tax. Can you just throw more light?
Well, we sort of, it's important that I first of all design it or paint a picture of the concept of governance, so to say, vis-a-vis taxation. What the FIRS does is to apply laws that are made by the National Assembly. And that means until the National Assembly addresses certain issues in our laws, we just obey the law as it is clearly written. So the harmonization of taxes, which is in direct response to the issue of multiplicity of taxes, that is or harmonization of our tax system, so to say.
Tax system.
So we're a situation where we have a single tax authority, and where we cut out, having multiple taxes being levied on businesses and what have you, is something that is within the remit of the National Assembly. But on our own part, given that part of our mandate and duty also includes tax advisory, being able to tell the government where we believe is the right direction to go to with regards to tax matters. We have organized one of the, I think the second National Tax Dialogue, which was last year, 2021, where we discussed the issue of tax harmonization. We had various guests speak to the issue, both from the subnational levels to international levels, and, you know, laid bare to the government. And the president was in attendance, and he even gave a directive in that regard that we should still continue to work towards harmonization of our tax systems, because that is the global best practice. The global best practice is to have a single tax authority that handles the data for tax collection, so that the data that I have here in Abuja is the same data that can be clicked on in Lagos, in Enugu, in Oyo, or any other state in the country. Have a situation where you have one tax authority. So the businessman or the personal individual who is in Kano is paying his tax to a single authority. His business is also paying the tax to the same authority. So nobody is paying here and another person is paying there. And so that is what we're more or less advocating for in terms of harmonization of tax systems. And when you harmonize tax systems, what are the benefits or profits of that? You are going to curb leakages. You are going to have a situation where at the end of the day, nobody shortchanges you as a taxpayer. Two, you are not going to end up paying to Mr. A. Somebody knocks on your door and says, I'm from so place, pay me tax. You are not going to have those kind of situations, because you have now a single tax authority. What you have paid is clearly stated, and then you have, a harmonized data system that everybody can access. So that is what we are, pushing forward. And in terms of what, aside, the advocacy, which is, to be honest, the best we can do, because we do not make laws. We only just comply or execute the laws, so to say. We have gone ahead to forge partnerships, and which is something that our executive chairman, Mr. Muhammad Nami, is very keen on. Building partnerships with stakeholders. And who are our stakeholders? Subnationals, states' internal revenue services. I would say that as it stands right now, we have MOUs with Kaduna State Internal Revenue Service and Lagos State Internal Revenue Service, which was the most recent. I think that was earlier this year or late last year. I can't really remember. And what was the terms of that MOU with Lagos State? That we'll begin to share data with ourselves. We'll begin to talk to each other. We'll begin to conduct joint tax audit operations together. And that means that we are building the foundation for a harmonized tax system. So when all the subnational tax authorities begin to work together, even though we have something like that already through the Joint Tax Board, which is also chaired by the executive chairman of the FIRS, we will begin to have more collaboration. We'll begin to build the goal, the long-term goal of harmonizing our tax system through, first of all, collaborating with ourselves through sharing data, sharing responsibilities, so that we now know that, okay, fine, if so person has been taxed in Enugu, he should not be taxed in Lagos or on the same item. Or let me even use something similar. The FIRS, which has more access to data, is able to share that data with other subnationals and say, okay, this is what Madam has in her account. She's resident in FCT. Maybe she has a house in Lagos. With that data, all the subnational revenue services will know what to do, and you will not have a situation and where money has been collected on your personal income tax, for instance. We don't expect it to be collected. Maybe if it has been collected in FCT, we don't expect it to be collected, in Lagos. And you can't now play both Lagos and FCT. You can't say, when you come to FCT, you say I've paid in Lagos. When you come to Lagos, you say I've paid in FCT. So all of those things are done with with a harmonized system or a holistically harmonized tax system.
Okay. Our time, like I said, will not allow us to take all our questions. But again, just like any other organization, what are the major challenges that the FIRS has encountered in the course of collection of taxes, and what measures are you putting in place to improve the tax collection, maybe for this year and for the future?
I would just say a couple. One is the dynamics of society.
Okay.
Society is changing and revolving every now and then. By the time I step out of the studio, I may be told something new has happened in Nigeria or has happened across the globe. The way we do business in the world is changing. There's cryptocurrency now, where people are moving, monies so that the eyes of government does not see them. And there's illicit financial flows and what have you. So these challenges, the FIRS must step up to them. And primarily, what are we doing? I would say, one, we are ensuring that we become a fully automated government organization. We are placing technology in its rightful place. And thus, we have set up the Intelligence and Strategic Data Mining Department, which is a core data mining department. All it does is receives data, mines data, and then, employs the data for tax purposes. So we're doing all of that to make sure that we're in tune with the 21st century dynamics of the commercial world. Other challenges, sometimes we have lack of clarity in tax laws and in functions of other authorities or other government agencies. But what are we doing to clear all of that? We're working with our stakeholders, which is a very critical thing that we take very serious. We're working with the National Assembly to rework the Finance Act, and that's why you see that we have a Finance Act every year. The new Finance Act is going to be passed. We're looking forward before the end of this week. The Finance Act may be signed by the President or be passed by the National Assembly and then transmitted to the President for his assent. So with the Finance Act, anytime we are able to identify that they were facing a challenge in terms of the tax system or the tax administration or even our tax laws, we liaise with our stakeholders in the National Assembly, sit down with our representatives, discuss with them. These are the issues we're facing. These are our proposals, and where they buy into it, where we have also engaged with our stakeholders in businesses and the commerce environment, we present it back to the National Assembly for a bill in terms of the Finance Act. And
quickly, what would be your advice to taxpayers?
Well, my advice to taxpayers is simple, and I hope I can summarize it in the best possible way. Every time you interact with one government service or the other, every time you take a trip and it's a safe one, every time you enjoy public services, either education, health, security, good roads, and what have you, you are enjoying the taxes you pay in one way or the other. And that means that even though our taxes are not where, or the government or society is not where we want it to be, it is moving forward. And with your taxes, more can be done. Thank you.
All right. Anytime you encounter any public good, you should know that it is your tax money that you are enjoying. And like he said, we are able to improve more on our taxation and what we use the tax money for. And with the recommendations and advice, we have come to the end of today's edition of Business and Economy. The guest we have been speaking with is the Special Assistant on Media and Communication to the Executive Chairman, Federal Inland Revenue Services, Mr. Johannes Toby Wujola. Mr. Wujola, we thank you for honoring our invitation on today's edition. I hope if we call you the next time for more enlightenment,
I will try my best to climb up the hill.
To climb up the hill on ASO Radio and Television Services. And to you out there, our esteemed viewers and listeners, we appreciate you so much for branching off. Do have a nice week.
Director, cut it for you so that